Hello, everybody. I'll at your boy. I know it's early. It's early for me too. Got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Wanted to do a secular talking smack live stream. Haven't done one of these in a while. Um, Goddamn, I woke up today and my right eye. It looks like I have pink eye or something. Um, and I'm looking at it now in the live stream. Holy shit, does that look bad? Wow. I mean, look at that. Jesus. That's why I'm wearing my glasses because my contacts. Sometimes I get a little too ambitious with my contacts. I wear the night and day ones, and what happens is I go nuts. I'll wear my night and day contacts for like sometimes 2 months straight, and it never really bothers my eyes. I know some people like Corin, he wears contacts from time to time, and for him, like he has to take them out every night. And if he doesn't take them out every night, he'll like wake up from a nap or something or from one night's sleep, and his eyes will be like really red and they'll be in pain. For me, I get the night and day ones, and I could just sleep even if I didn't have the night and day ones. Back when I had the ones that you're supposed to take out every night, I would still sleep with them for like a week or 2 weeks, and I'd be fine. I'd feel no problem with it at all. I wouldn't be in pain. My eyes wouldn't be red. I don't think this is because of the contacts. I think it's actually because of maybe pink eye. Maybe I got pink eye. It looks like pink eye, and it's like watery and stuff. It's gross. It's disgusting. But anyway, on that lovely note to start, um, like I said, there's a bunch of stuff that I want to get to. I'll take some super chats a little bit later. So if you just popped into this live stream, you could hold off on the super chats for now, because if you send a super chat now, I'm not really gonna see it. I'll announce when I'm ready to start taking some super chats. Let me get into the live control room. So I put in the title some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. The Politicon debate. I'm so terrible at promoting shit that involves me. I really am. I'm the worst. But I'm trying to get better at it, and I'm trying to talk about it more often. Like, I retweeted my announcement that I'm going to be at Politicon yesterday, and there were people who were like, "Oh shit, you're going to be at Politicon?" And then that's just a reminder to me that's like, "Oh, just because I said it once doesn't mean that everybody caught on to it that first time." In fact, that's probably the exact opposite is true. Um, People had no idea. Most people probably had no idea, and unless you saw that one particular video of me discussing it, then you wouldn't know. So I try to remind myself to talk about this stuff more often. I'm going to be debating Ann Coulter at Politicon. It should be fun. I'm starting to get more of the details now. A lot of people have been asking me, okay, what day are you going to do it, and do you know what time and all that stuff? I do not know the time. I know that as of right now, it's supposed to be, I think, on Saturday that I debate Ann Coulter. Now, I'm also going to be, for the other days, I will also be involved in other ways in Politicon. I think I'm going to be, I have the one debate with Ann Coulter, then I have, I think, two more panels that I'm supposed to be on. And I'm not, the details are still being ironed out for the panels, but my understanding is that at least one of the panels, the conversation is going to be, what should the Democratic Party do moving forward? It's like reforming the Democratic Party, and how we move forward from here. And some people would frame it as repairing the Democratic Party, bringing back unity after what happened in the 2016 election. I don't even know if that's necessarily a good thing to be unified if you're unifying with one half of the picture, and that half is just corrupt. I don't want to unify with corrupt people. So it should be an interesting discussion. I know I'm going to be there. We're going to have Anna Kasparian from TYT is going to be there. I think she's supposed to be on one of the panels with me. David Pakman will be there. Sam Cedar. These are people whose names I've seen floated as to potentially be on certain panels with me. So there's a lot of stuff to look forward to. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I know that probably the debate is the thing that's going to get most of the attention, at least in terms of the stuff that I'll be involved in. But I honestly, I think even the panel discussion should be interesting. So I left the tickets in the description to the live stream. If you want to, join us, please. I want to pack that place full of Secular Talk listeners, and that will certainly make me feel more at ease. That's for damn sure. And we'll be able to interact and have some fun. And again, I think the Ann Coulter debate is supposed to be on that Saturday. So, because it's like a 2-day thing, so people were asking, "Hey, which one should I get?" I going 2 days is a little excessive. I think the Ann Coulter one Saturday, but the thing is, like I said, all the details are still being ironed out, so I'm not even sure if that's gonna maintain. Maybe that'll change, and if it does change, obviously I'll tell you guys and I'll update you on that. But I thought, hey, it's probably a good idea if I let everybody know that I'm going to be at Politicon, because so far I've only mentioned it like 2 times. So I should probably continue to do that and try to do that almost every show from now until Politicon. That'd probably be a good idea. So get some tickets and we'll have some fun. It's in LA. It's actually a good segue talking about the Democratic Party and how that might be one of the panels to the first topic. Should I dive into, what did I put in the title of the video? Did I put Ted Cruz first or did I put Hillary Clinton first? I don't even know. I'll talk about whichever one I put first. Ted Cruz. I put me. Ted Cruz. People are debating which impression is better, my Ted Cruz impression or my Pat Robertson. Here, I'll do my Pat Robertson. Let me tell you, I'm gonna pray away the hurricane. I got this hurricane coming our way, and I'm praying away, and the Lord Jesus is gonna save us. That's my Pat Robertson. My Ted Cruz just involves the word me. That's my whole Ted Cruz impression. I'm Ted Cruz. Me. Ted Cruz. Me. So Ted Cruz is in serious trouble, and I think he realizes that, because now he's sending out fake summons to try to get money, to try to raise campaign funds. And listen, that's a sign that he's in trouble, and he knows he's in trouble because he's pulling out all these sleazy, dirty tricks. And remember, we've done some segments recently where Ted Cruz is just, his ads are like comically bad. I mean, really bad. There's one ad where like the whole thing is like, I stand for the anthem. Me. It's like, it's right-wing virtue signaling. That's what he's doing. He's doing virtue signaling to the right. I like the anthem, and I enjoy America. I think America's good. Me. So he did that. And I always, whenever I think about Ted Cruz now, I think about the video of him during the election where he's sitting next to his mom, and he's trying to, make it seem like he's got the perfect Leave It to Beaver family. And because he feels like that's what he needs to portray in order to win. And he's like, my mother, she prays for me every day for hours a day. And his mom is like, what the fuck did you just say? He's so bad. He's so awkward. And then what was the other one that he did recently? Oh, he went after Beto O'Rourke for cursing. There was an Ted Cruz ad that went after Beto O'Rourke for cursing. And it's like, hey, dude, number one, you support Donald Trump, and he curses more than any politician. Number two, you're making him look like a badass. And this is the same thing I said when Republicans ran an ad back during the primary when they were going after Trump for cursing. I said, you're doing his work for him because you're making, he's rough around the edges. He's not like the other fake politicians. That's what the message people are going to take away from that. And if you do the same thing for Beto O'Rourke, you're helping him. And also you're blowing up this myth of like, you portray lefties as stereotypical, in their feelings and mushy and snowflakes. And then now what you're doing is you're saying, oh, he's not that. He's like a cool dude who's not afraid to break convention. So he's so bad. But the fact that you have to send out, like, I'm not sure, that might even be illegal. So as a campaign, you're going to send out fundraising appeals, and it's going to have summons on it. You can't impersonate a summons. That's crazy. You shouldn't be allowed to do. I don't honestly, they might not be allowed to do that. That may be a violation of the law. So again, I think that shows that he's in trouble, and he knows he's in trouble. And boy, is that amazing. I mean, we're talking about Texas, and it's supposed to be like a layup election for Ted Cruz, but he's just such a bad politician that it's not. And, you know, I have many issues with how Beto is running his campaign, but as I've said before, I think he might even be able to pull it off because Ted is so bad. So even though I think Beto is running a flawed campaign, that might not even matter because he's better than Ted Cruz. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, man. I'm very interested to see what happens in that race. But I will say this: if Beto happens to lose, that's when I'll remind everybody of all the things that I thought he did wrong. I already mentioned it in one segment. We don't need to get into it now, but I'll just say that if he doesn't win, it'll be because he wasn't populist enough. Again, he might pull it out because apparently he's going all over Texas, and I think he's been to every county in Texas. So he's really like putting in the legwork, which is great, which I support. So he might pull it out for that reason, and because Ted Cruz is Ted Cruz, and he's so terrible. But if he doesn't pull it out, I'll think it's because he wasn't populist enough. And honestly, I think that was a little bit of what happened with Cynthia Nixon. We won't talk about that now. I'm sure you guys might have some questions about that, and which I'll be happy to answer when we get to the super chats. But I think that was one of the things with Cynthia. Okay, Hillary Clinton. So this, I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll save it for a regular show, but no, I'll just talk about it now because I really don't want to give her any more official attention on the regular show. We'll do it in a secular talking smack. She got downgraded now. She's in the secular talking. It's like the kids' table debate. Remember the kids' table debate during the Republican primary where they had all the shittier candidates? They had like fucking Bobby Jindal and Lindsey Graham debate each other like earlier. That's what Hillary Clinton's been downgraded. So now we're talking about her here and not on the regular show. But she tweeted something. She did this long tweet storm like, oh my God, Donald Trump is terrible. Wow, fresh material you got there, Hillary. And here's one of the things she said that really blew up on lefty Twitter. She said, Donald Trump refuses to be subject to the law. The legitimacy of our elections is in doubt. Okay, let's pause right there. That's only half the tweet, but let's pause right there. The legitimacy of our elections is in doubt. Almost like the legitimacy of the 2016 Democratic primary was in doubt because of you and Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the DNC and your agreement with them, where they were basically an arm of the Hillary Clinton campaign. And, how WikiLeaks proved that you guys fundamentally rigged the primary against Bernie Sanders, who was the candidate who could have beaten Donald Trump. You mean that kind of in doubt, Hillary? The kind of in doubt where you rig a primary and then screw over the country and screw over the Democratic Party from getting the proper nominee who can beat Donald Trump. You mean that kind of in doubt? Is that the kind of in doubt you're talking about? You mean the kind of in doubt where Donna Brazile sneaks you questions to a debate before the debate actually happens? That kind of in doubt? You mean the voting times in pro-Bernie districts being fiddled with? You mean that kind of in doubt? You mean the kind of in doubt where you hide debates on purpose in order to try to maintain your lead and run out the clock? You mean that kind of in doubt? Is that the kind of in doubt you mean? Our elections are in doubt? Is that the kind of in doubt? I mean, that's her hypocrisy is the thing I can't get over, but it gets worse. She says the administration is undermining the national unity that makes democracy possible. Okay, I'll pause again. That's not the whole tweet, but I'll pause again. This is the same kind of mealy-mouthed corporate Democrat bullshit that doesn't appeal to anybody. I care about national unity. National unity. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? It means, I want Democrats and Republicans to hold hands and sing Kumbaya and act like everything is great and we love each other. That's not a winning message. I mean, Adam Johnson of FAIR says it best. He says nobody shows up to a pep rally to root for a tie. And when that's what you're talking about, national unity, that's what you're doing. Like, why can't we all just get along and hold hands? Why the fuck would you want to get along with people who want to wage endless war and want to take healthcare away from everybody and who are speeding up the next crash by deregulating and cutting taxes for the rich? Why would you want to get along with them? I don't want national unity with those people, the elected Republicans. I don't want that. So that's bullshit, mealy-mouthed corporate Democrat nonsense. And then here's the line that is really the cherry on top, and it's the worst part. And then there's the breathtaking corruption, Hillary Clinton says, of Donald Trump. Now, let me be crystal clear for those of you who try to take this out of context. Is Donald Trump corrupt? You bet your ass cheeks he's corrupt. It's not even a question. I mean, they have an emoluments case against him that has proceeded through 2 courts. So emoluments means he's taking money from foreign governments, and that is the Constitution doesn't allow that, because then you have a president who's compromised who will do the bidding of the governments that are paying him money. And there's legitimacy to the emoluments case. Never mind the private donations and doing the bidding of Wall Street and packing his administration full of Goldman Sachs and so on and so forth. He is insanely corrupt. However, Hillary Clinton is too. You do not get to talk about breathtaking corruption when it was the Clinton Foundation that was directly involved in the looting of Haiti after the earthquake. You don't get to talk about corruption when it's the Clinton Foundation that has 1,000 corruption scandals with legitimacy. Don't take my word for it. David Sirota of the International Business Times wrote an amazing article that details all of the corruption scandals with the Clinton Foundation in particular, and it is mind-boggling. It's an endless list of corruption scandals. And most importantly, you don't get to talk about corruption when Hillary and Bill together for their respective careers, you know how much money they raise from private donors? And it's for all of their endeavors, for their respective campaigns, for the Clinton Foundation, for everything put together. $3 billion. Now, if you tell me they raised $3 billion in private donations and they did not turn around and do favors for the big money interests that gave them that money, I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself. And you're being willfully blind to the reality of the situation. And look, it's reflected in the voting record. Again, don't take my word for it. Why do you think Hillary Clinton has to say, like she did in the debate, before the crash on Wall Street, I went down there and I told them, you guys better cut it out. Cut it out. Why did she say that? Because she had nothing stronger to say to point to her record, because she was in favor of the deregulation of Wall Street. So now it's, oh, sure, my policies roll on the wrong side, but I went down there and told them and wagged my finger and said, you better cut it out. See, corporate Democrats are the downfall of the Democratic Party. And whenever Hillary Clinton goes out there and she tries to lead this charge against Donald Trump, all it's going to do is set us back. Because now, instead of having the conversation that we should be having, what we're doing is we have to pick apart Hillary Clinton and our own side because of the breathtaking hypocrisy and the breathtaking corruption that we have to deal with. And she even had the nerve to go on and say, here, I'll read this one for you. David Sirota on Twitter pointed this out. Hillary goes, there is a tendency when talking about these things to wring our hands about both sides. But the truth is that this is not a symmetrical problem. When it comes to the issue of corruption, you bet your ass it's a symmetrical problem. It's not a symmetrical problem when it comes to, say, social issues. Republicans are just flat out worse. You can point to maybe 6 or 7 different issues where it is not a symmetrical problem, and the Republicans are just way, 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 way worse. But when it comes to buying into the premise of we're going to take corporate money, we're going to take billionaire money, yeah, it is a symmetrical problem. It 100% is a symmetrical problem. And she is the queen of corruption. So for her to say that is like, here's what that means. She knows she's being a hypocrite, and so she has to go above and beyond to try to hide her hypocrisy. And then also, what David Sirota puts next to that, which really just proves his point and proves Hillary dead wrong, is that at the same time she was tweeting this, you know what was going on? The Senate voted 93-7 to approve a $607 billion military budget, which is a $17 billion increase, and it's the biggest military budget outside of the height of the Iraq War. And you know who the no votes were? I hope you're sitting down. Paul, Toomey, Sass, Lee, Flake, Perdue, and Bernie Sanders. So in other words, 6 of the no votes on the giant increase in military spending were Republicans. The only person who's on the left who was against it, Bernie Sanders. So when Hillary says, "Oh, this isn't a symmetrical problem," they're the problem. Every single Democrat in the Senate voted to give thin-skinned, lunatic, maniac, crazy person Donald Trump a $607 billion military budget, $17 billion increase in the military budget. At the same time, by the way, they say he's compromised by a hostile foreign power. Wait, if he's compromised by a hostile foreign power, why would you give him a $17 billion military increase? That makes absolutely no sense. It's almost like you don't believe that he's compromised by a hostile foreign power. But even putting that aside, you guys say, and I agree with this point, hey, he's a crazy person. He's really out of his mind. I mean, who would trust this guy? He's no impulse control whatsoever. And you're going to give this guy a one of the biggest militaries the world has ever seen ever, only eclipsed by the height of the Iraq War? So it is a symmetrical problem, Hillary. Get out of the way. You have to go. You have to go. Because as long as you're the face of the Democratic Party, it hurts the Democratic Party. That should be obvious. The fact that people still bother to get mad at the left when the left goes after Hillary Clinton, it drives me crazy. Because don't you understand? It's like you're arguing for the root of the problem to remain, which is only going to drag down the Democratic Party and help the Republicans. How do you not realize that? How do you not realize that? It's unbelievable. And it drives me crazy. And she needs to go away. You're not a hero. And by the way, she also just did an interview with Rachel Maddow. Guess what one of the main topics was in that interview? You guessed it, Russia. Russia. Oh my God, this is not a symmetrical problem. Well, if you're so concerned about the Russia thing, Hillary, why would you not tell the Democrats, hey, you can't give this guy an increase in the military budget? That's insane. Because that means effectively you're giving Putin an increase in the U.S. military budget. You're giving this guy a giant army, and you say he's a Manchurian candidate. You didn't say that. It's unbelievable, and she wants to continue business as usual, continue the status quo, while at the same time pretending like she's some sort of revolutionary and like, oh yeah, it's part of the hashtag resistance. Pipe down, step aside, your day in the sun is done, we can't handle it anymore. Okay, Michael Bloomberg. God damn it, I gotta talk about Michael Bloomberg. I don't want to talk about Michael Bloomberg, but I have to talk about Michael Bloomberg. Interesting tweet the other day. Now, we already knew he was considering running. It looks like it's a done deal and he's going to run in 2020. Michael, this is a tweet from Daniel Dale. Is he Daddy Yankee or some shit? He says, Michael Bloomberg says he's considering a presidential run as a Democrat, and also that liberal Democrats are too hard on big banks, that stop and frisk is a good policy, and that men like Charlie Rose might have been wronged by Me Too. This is where I usually go on my rant about how Michael Bloomberg shouldn't run. But you know what? Go ahead, Michael Bloomberg, run. John Kerry, same thing. Go ahead and run. In fact, every single establishment-minded person who wants to run as a Democrat, please, by all means, go right ahead. Because I want to split the establishment vote among like 4 or 5 people and then have Bernie Sanders waltz into the nomination with an overwhelming majority. That's what I want to see. So Michael Bloomberg, go right ahead. It is the hubris of this man, the arrogance of this man, to think that he has a shot. Dude, are you kidding? Nobody likes Michael Bloomberg. The only people who like Michael Bloomberg, the 1%. And he might get a healthy bipartisan coalition of the 1%. That I can see. I can see him getting Republican 1%ers and Democratic 1%ers. But you know what regular people think of him? They think he's horrendous. You want to know why? Because he's horrendous. Because he's in favor of stop and frisk, even though it's been proven that it doesn't work and it overwhelmingly cracks down on minority communities. And he wants to ban big gulps. That's the guy that we're going to choose to be our president? Like, oh, please tell us what vices we can and cannot have and mandated by law. Tell us we're not allowed to enjoy large sodas because you personally disagree with large sodas. Go fuck yourself. See, this is one of those people who he has a dictator's impulse. I think Trump has that too, by the way. Let me be clear. But He has a dictator's impulse. In other words, I don't like it, therefore it should be banned. Now, what would a reasonable person, what would an intelligent person say? I might try to talk you out of doing something that's bad for your health. I might say, hey, you know what? Maybe, yes, put down the big goal. Maybe get a slightly smaller size. So I might tell you, dude, listen, you keep smoking those cigarettes, you're on the path to lung cancer or emphysema, and it's going to happen sooner than you think. And you're not the exception to the rule. The statistics are what they are. So I'm going to try to help you. But here's what I wouldn't do, because I'm not a jackass. I wouldn't go, I don't like it and it's bad for you, therefore it should be banned. A lot of things are bad for you. McDonald's is bad for you. Should we ban McDonald's? I mean, it's childlike thinking. I don't like it, therefore I'm going to ban it. I don't like it at all. It's terrible. And this is Michael Bloomberg. And he thinks like, and make no mistake about it, guy, he thinks he's a hero. I just want you to know that. He thinks he's a hero. He thinks like, oh, Donald Trump is a bad billionaire and he's making all these terrible decisions. I'll be the good billionaire and I'll step in and I'll do all the right things and save the people. I'm Michael Bloomberg. I'm going to save the people. Yes. Yeah. We don't need a billionaire to save us. We need the voice of the people to actually be listened to. Because when you look at the polling data, the people are pretty reasonable on the issues. But this is a guy who's going to ignore that completely and go by his own whims. Can't stand him. Terrible dude. Okay. We're getting there, guys. Let me do two more thingies, and then I'll open it up to super chats. So figure 10 more minutes, and then I'll start taking super chats. All right, Gary Cohn. So Gary Cohn was at an event recently. He was asked a question by a reporter about, hey, do you understand why people are angry, and they're angry at the banks, and they're angry at Wall Street, and they wish more was done after the Great Recession? And Gary Cohn literally said, like, no, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Then he deflected blame for the subprime mortgage crisis in the Great Recession on, and I quote, the waitress from Vegas with 6 houses. Okay, that's not a thing. But I'll go further. Okay, let's actually grant, you know what? Let's grant him that, even though I've seen no evidence for that. Let's say that is a thing. How many waitresses in Vegas had 6 houses? Even if I grant him, okay, I'll give you your goofy story. How many of them were there? They did not cause the financial crisis. And if you think they did, your anger is being redirected by oligarchs and plutocrats at the victims of the crisis. Again, oldest trick in the book. You know the deal. Oh, don't look at the rich and the rigged system as to why your life is shitty. Look at the poor person of color or the immigrant. Look at somebody else with no money and no power. Look at somebody else who's a victim of what happened. So he blames it on them. And then he starts chastising the reporter, and he says, what law did we break? What law did we break? What law did we break? Name a law we broke. Talking about Wall Street. Now, Gary Cohn, I think he was the president of Goldman Sachs. He was a top official in Goldman Sachs. Maybe the president, maybe not. I don't know. But he was a top official in Goldman Sachs. For those of you who don't know what happened with Goldman Sachs, Bernie Sanders often says, and he said this in the debates, and he said this in speeches and in interviews, he said, fraud was a business model on Wall Street. Now, establishment Democrats will scoff at that and go, oh my God, Bernie's going too far. No, he says that because it is literally factually correct. So what happened in the case of Goldman Sachs is they would sell these subprime mortgage packages. Now, those packages were rated AAA, which means, oh, this is a very safe investment. How did they get that AAA stamp on it? They bought the ratings agencies. So you pay the ratings agencies to give you whatever grade you want. So you pay them and they go, okay, here, AAA. So then you gain the trust of the public and your clients by saying, hey, these are AAA. You sell these subprime mortgage packages with all these promises about how these people are going to make a tremendous amount of money and they're going to retire and they're going to make millions of dollars and all this stuff. Then what did they do? They turn around and they bet on those same packages that they just sold as if they were awesome. And they said they were awesome. They turn around and they bet on those packages to fail. That's what we call fraud. It's like if a car salesman says to you, oh, I got this awesome, great car that you're going to love and it's going to be so great. And look at, isn't it beautiful? And you're looking at the car, you're going, yeah, I love it. It looks really good. And you go, oh, can I test drive it? He goes, no. Listen, we have a policy of no test driving. But look, hey, this is the 2018 model. It looks like you're driving the 2013 model. I swear we've smoothed out the ride. The ride is beautiful. You might want to buy this car. I'm telling you, buy this car. You're going to love it. And you go, okay, I guess, sure. I mean, I'm in the market for a new car. I might as well. The thing looks beautiful. And then you buy it and you go to drive it out of the lot. And it turns out you don't have an engine in the car. And the car salesman turned around after he sold it to you and said to his buddy, hey, I'll bet you that he can't even get this car out of the lot. See, that proves that the salesman knew that he was selling dog shit and he was lying to you. He was lying to you about the product. That's what we call fraud. Knowingly sold a product that doesn't do what he said it would do. That's what Goldman Sachs did. That's what Gary Cohn himself may have done. And he had the nerve to lecture a reporter and say, what law did we break? What law did we break? I don't know, what law did we break? What law did we break? And then on top of putting all that aside, so the fraud, there you go. You're guilty of fraud, 100%. Do you have any idea how much money on Wall Street was handed out by the government in the form of a bailout? And then these same financial institutions that were just bankrupted by the decisions made by the CEOs on Wall Street, they took all that taxpayer money and then they turned around and paid bonuses to the same people that just made the decisions that tanked the global economy and bankrupted their respective financial institutions. So I need you to stop and think about that. They caused the crash. They bankrupted their own companies. The government bails them out with your taxpayer money, and then they get bonuses after they bankrupted their companies. What incentive does that put in place? That incentive is there are no consequences. Do it again. If you win, you win because you're going to get a giant bonus and you're going to be paid out the wazoo and you'll be set for life. If you lose, you win. Because who cares? You bankrupted your company. You made horrendous decisions. You should be fired. But no, you're going to keep your job and you're going to be get a bonus. So you lose, but you win. And then they have the nerve to say, when they paid out those bonuses, oh, we just had to do this because we had to maintain the talent at our corporations. Talent? What talent? These are the people that bankrupted their companies and crashed the economy. And you're talking about maintain the talent. Are you fucking nuts? So Gary Cohn should be in prison. He's a liar. He's a scam artist. And he has some nerve to chastise a reporter about this. And the reporter did a bad job because the reporter pointed out none of what I'm pointing out to you right now. None of it. Man, it's frustrating watching all this. And the problem is, I'm afraid that most Americans can't tell you what I just told you. And that means that, again, it's bound to happen again. It's bound to happen again because the government is corrupt, but it's also bound to happen again because the media, which is supposed to be the watchdog of people in power, the media is not playing that role. And so now people have to come to YouTube shows like mine in order to get the truth. And, you know, we have a wide reach, but it's not nearly wide enough to educate everybody so they really know what's going on here and they know who's screwing them. Okay, and then the final one I'll bring up, and then I'll take your super chat questions. Actually, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to talk about this issue. Then I'm going to go take a piss. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to take your super chat questions. So start sending them in 5 minutes, let's say. Okay. Apparently Coca-Cola is now considering doing, or just flat out going to do, marijuana infused beverages. Okay, it's over. Legalizing marijuana is the new gay marriage. It's over. It's coming, 100%. Because now you've permeated the mainstream. That's the biggest clue ever that it's coming, and there's no doubt about it. Because now you've got corporate America on your side. And corporate America gets what they want. I don't know if you know that. I'm sure all of you do. Corporate America gets what they want. So it's going mainstream. I also have anecdotal evidence of this. Close family members, conservative on top of that, calls me one day and says, I just bought marijuana stock. I'm like, what the fuck? Again, close family member, up there in age, and conservative by nature. But you bought marijuana stock. It's permeated the mainstream, guys. It's permeated the mainstream. If Coke's doing that, that means that the big money is now shifting to going behind legalization because they see that there's too much money to be made in the boom with legalization. So it's just a matter of time until corporate America pushes the government enough where the government totally flips. At the very least, they're more hands-off now. But they're going to totally flip at some point. And I don't know what the tipping point was. I think there's a good argument that California was the tipping point. Oh, you legalize marijuana in California, which is the fucking, sixth biggest economy in the world on its own. There's no going back from that. What are you going to do? You're going to try to roll it back? You fucking kidding me? It's such a giant market. To roll that back is to roll back a tremendous amount of revenue for the government. So that's good news. It's good news. The money has now flipped to be on the proper side of this issue, just like at a certain point, the money flipped to be on the proper side of gay marriage. So I don't know how it's going to ultimately be legalized. It could be Supreme Court decision. I don't know because the makeup of the court is right-leaning. But maybe Supreme Court decision. They could come up with some weird ruling that the federal government has no legitimacy over states' rights and the states can individually legalize it and the federal government can't override it. That could happen. Or it could be just through the legislature. I think in due time, next time you get a Democratic supermajority, there is enough political will for them to legalize it through Congress and then have a Democratic president sign it. It's just a matter of the Democrats have balls enough, and the Democrats are the Democrats, so you never know on that front. But I do think it's a matter of time. You could put the clock on it now, and we will have legal marijuana. When Coca-Cola now flipped to be on your side, that's not a small thing. That's a big deal. All right, so having said that, I'm doing the pee-pee dance in my chair here. I'm going to go take a piss, and then when I come back, I'll start answering your super chat questions, so you can start sending them in now. Be right back, bitches. All right, we back, bitches. Ugh. Get in the butter zone, as Corin likes to call it. I've officially stolen that from Corin, the butter zone. Butter zone is just when you're really comfortable. You're in the butter zone. I really like that. I got the MGK disc stuck in my head, the Eminem MGK disc. We spoke about that on Kyle and Corin the other day. I mean, I know Eminem won the exchange, but I'm sorry, MGK's song is catchy as fuck. It really is. It's stuck in my head. I've been like singing parts of it. Okay. Please tell me you'll record the debate. We will. I wish I could fucking make it. And would you ever have a discussion with Destiny? I don't really know who Destiny is. YouTuber that's center left and does debate with far right wingers. I don't really know who Destiny is, so I can't really answer that question, but we are going to record it. Cohn will be recording the debate, and we'll get it up on the channel. We already got permission from Politicon on that front. Because apparently they don't stream it, which I thought was kind of weird. Your fucking beard's weird. Can you do an entire segment in your billionaire? Okay, I can do that. Nine money. Yeah. I will do that at some point. Kyle, you should do a secular talk meetup at Politicon or at a bar after. Well, I'll definitely, I mean, when I'm there, I'll definitely be, as long as I'm not doing a panel or doing a debate, I'll be available. You know, you can come up and talk to me. It's not like I have Secret Service surrounding me. So I'll meet people while I'm there for sure. As far as what's happening after, I don't know if I can do like a meetup at a bar after, because I'll be with Corin. We have a super long, busy schedule. But like I said, I'll be accessible. I'll be there at Politicon. I'll be happy to meet and talk to all you guys. As someone from Kentucky, I find your fake, terrible Southern accents hilarious. Also enjoy my devilish dollars. 666 he sent. I like that. Thanks, Christian. What do you think of Australia's anti-encryption laws that are about to go through? I don't know anything about them, but just off of what you told me, anti-encryption laws, that strikes me as crazy. And it strikes me as the government trying to spy on people more, and I'm against that. Do you worry about this Obamacare lawsuit? Yes, I do. Most legal scholars are saying that it's unlikely to go anywhere, but I'm still quite worried. Of course, I'm worried about it too. Sure. For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, there's a lawsuit that the Republicans are bringing that it basically eliminates protections for pre-existing conditions. Hell yeah, I'm worried about that. I tend to agree with legal scholars in that I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but of course I'm worried about that because it could go the wrong way. And if it goes the wrong way, they fucking take away your protections for pre-existing conditions. And that's huge. That's a huge downside. Listen, I have a litmus test for politicians. Don't get me wrong. But I don't have a fucking cinder block for a head. So I understand that if protections for pre-existing conditions go away, that's going to destroy so many people. And I'm not okay with that. That's really fucked up. You know? And there is a difference, even between corporate Democrats and Republicans, there's a difference. Because corporate Democrats are not going to take away protection for pre-existing conditions. Republicans will, even though, by the way, now they lie and they say they're for those protections, but they're not because they're waging a fucking lawsuit to try to get rid of it. So yes, I am worried about that. What do you think about the situation in Idlib? I think it's terrible. I think the West needs to stay. I think Israel needs to stay out of it. I think the U.S. needs to stay out of it. And I think that the Syrian government should hopefully defeat Al-Qaeda and take their territory back. And we should stop doing propaganda and pretending that it's not jihadists who are the rebels in that area, because it is jihadists. When will you join the cool kids and Reddit Ask Me Anything? This isn't Ask Me Anything, right? That's what it feels like, isn't it? Hey Kyle, greetings from Germany. After watching your stuff for more than a year, it is sad to see the same shit happening in Germany. Even more sad is that we have no Bernie. Keep up the great work. Yeah, I mean, that does suck. So who's your furthest left politician that's viable? I mean, Merkel's like center right, correct? I think that's what Merkel is. Yeah, I don't know enough about German politics. I just know that there was a fear of the rising far right in Germany, which is scary because far right in Germany, not the best history there. But Merkel, always thought was like center right, but who knows? Maybe she's center left. No question. Just wanted to thank you. Damn, Richard, you went in. Richard? Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. No question. Just wanted to thank you for all the amazing content you provide. Also wanted to vent my frustration that the Swedish AG just said that legalizing weed is completely ruled out. Oh, shit. And zero tolerance policy is the best way to go. Damn, in Sweden they said that? Because Sweden is usually ahead of us on so many issues. I'm so surprised. That's really sad, man. Sweden is usually ahead of us, and they're saying shit like that, completely ruled out. That's not good. What do you think of Jimmy Dore saying that taking over the Democratic Party is useless? I don't know if he said that, but if he did say that, I don't agree with that. I've talked about this before. I'm in favor of an all-the-above approach. I'll vote for people on the left wherever they happen to be. I don't care if they're in the Green Party. I don't care if they're an independent. I don't care if they're in some weird new third party that nobody's ever heard of. I'll vote for people who are populist left no matter where they fall. And I think to rule out voting for progressives if they happen to be within the Democratic Party, I don't think that's a good idea. I disagree with that completely. Would you rather be stuck on a deserted island with me, Ted Cruz, for 5 years, or donate your life savings and all future YouTube earnings to the Clinton Foundation? Give me that Ted Cruz, 5 years, me. I linked you anti-net neutrality video on Twitter a couple days ago and asked you to destroy it. You didn't respond. I didn't see. Listen, for those of you who might tweet something at me and then I don't respond, it's because I don't see it. Because unfortunately, I've had to institute a policy. And I've had conversations with other people who are in a similar position as I am about this. And there appears to be consensus among the people I talk to at this point that honestly, for your own mental health purposes, you cannot regularly read your Twitter mentions, because 1 out of every 5 messages is like abhorrently terrible. Whether it's like fucking threats or whether it's just a total misstatement of what your belief is on something, but they state it and then they go on to attack it and viciously, like, comment on you. And it's like, for your own mental health, you don't see it. So I didn't see your article, so I apologize for that. But I'd be happy to take a look at an anti-net neutrality video, because anti-net neutrality stuff is terrible. I want a job in the cannabis industry, though I live in Texas, and with corporations like Coca-Cola and Monsanto coming in, I worry that jobs will be low paying and exploitative. The corporate kind of takeover is real. What to do? I mean, that's a good point. There's an upside and a downside to that. So the upside is, when there's a corporate takeover of marijuana, that means it's going to be legal quicker, for sure, 100%, because corporations really control this country. The downside of it is what you pointed out, which is, you're going to have, it's not going to be like small businesses that pay decent wages to people and, provide a good living for the people who own the small business. It's going to be more big corporations that are now involved in selling the product. And so it's a difficult situation, because I think they had it. What state was it in where they had a bill like this, where it was like, okay, we're going to legalize marijuana, but it can only be produced by these few people. It can only be sold by these few corporations. And it was like legalizing it, but it was like an oligarchic way of legalizing it. And I think people tossed it out. I think they were like, no, it was on direct ballot initiative, and people said no. I don't know. I have mixed feelings. In all honesty, I tend to lean the other way, which is, listen, get it legal, and then we'll iron out all the other shit after. That's the position I generally lean towards. But saying, I have to admit that as I say that, I understand that that's not a cure-all, because if you have the corporate takeover of cannabis, well, you pointed out, I think will happen. There will be lower paying jobs in those fields, as opposed to better paying jobs and, a better way, a better system set up where you can buy and sell it. Hey, Kyle, huge fan and small progressive YouTuber myself. I know you take super chats, but have you considered taking live calls during the show? Congratulations on finally getting a Wikipedia page. Yeah, I made it, bro. I got a Wikipedia page, bro. Somebody needs to put somebody should put a section in my Wikipedia that says me, Ted Cruz, and then it describe where the man comes from. Kyle Kulinski is most famous for his mocking of Ted Cruz involving the phrase me. Gotta add that in there. Live calls during the show. I used to do that. At a certain point, I stopped because I focused more on, honestly, it's probably the TYT model of, okay, cover X amount of stories per day, clip it out, throw it up. I just gravitated towards that direction, because as a YouTuber, it was easier when you started out to do it that way. But yes, I used to take those live calls. Maybe at some point in the future, I'll go back to that model, but I'm a fan of, I like what we do now. I mean, we also have a nice mix of stuff now. You have the regular show and, all the clips that get thrown on YouTube. You got Kyle and Cohn. Every now and then I do a secular talking smack like I'm doing right now, which is kind of like a town hall, which I think is pretty cool. So, maybe I'm always, even though I think sometimes we're a little repetitive, I actually do think that there has been evolutions in the show. Like secular talking smack wasn't always a thing. Kyle and Cohn wasn't always a thing. And so then there's the Kyle out of context too. Shout out to Leon for that. So there's been evolutions and whatnot. And who knows, maybe at some point there will be an evolution to what you pointed out. But as of right now, no, there are no immediate plans to do that. You should report on Al Namrud. They are an anonymous anti-religious black metal band from Saudi Arabia, of all places. They deserve all the respect. That is ballsy, man. That is ballsy. If you're doing black metal shit, anti-religious black metal shit in Saudi Arabia, you better be anonymous as a motherfucker and cover your face. But yeah, shout out to Al Namrud, because that's ballsy. That's got a lot more courage than I have, that's for sure. Kyle, wish I could meet you at Politicon. You're amazing. Have you heard about Article 13 being passed in Europe? Worse than anti-net neutrality. I have not heard about that. But are you actually coming to Politicon? Because I don't know if you are by your comment. You say, wish I can meet you at Politicon. If you're going to be there, you can meet me. But I have not heard about Article 13. I'm pretty sad. For Colorado 3rd District, the left option is mealy-mouthed and touts Ken Salazar's endorsement. And for Colorado governor, the only one who's for Medicare for All by name voted to make Bush tax cuts permanent. So, Balthazar, you have to be a little careful with the Bush tax cuts thing, because here's the reality about that. I've said this before on the show, and I know many other progressives happen to agree with me, but I've actually never met a working class tax cut that I didn't agree with. So I agree with tax cuts for like 90% of Americans, because if you're a working person, I don't want the government taking your money. I think you should keep your money. And on top of you keeping your money, I think we should also have social programs that help you on top of you being able to keep more of your own money. So with the Bush tax cuts thing, it is true that Bush's tax cuts overwhelmingly went to the rich. But usually what happened when even the corporate Democrats said, okay, I'm going to sign on to make the Bush tax cuts permanent, what that usually meant was for the bottom 90%, in which case I don't disagree with that at all, actually, because those are tax cuts for the people. The only people I disagree with doing tax cuts for are like the top 10%. So the devil's in the details there with the Bush tax cuts thing. And I would actually argue, and I do so vociferously, that the more progressive position is to support tax cuts for working class people. You know, and at the same time as that, you also support raising taxes on the rich, raising taxes on corporations and billionaires, eliminating the loopholes and the offshoring, and at the same time having those social programs there in place and not cutting those social programs. So that's a little questionable, but whoever supports Medicare for All, I would say that you don't be too upset to vote for somebody who supports Medicare for All, because that's a big thing. That's a great thing. So maybe they're not perfect, but if they're for Medicare for All, they're getting really damn close to passing my litmus test, at least. Why haven't you talked about Article 11 and 13 that just passed in the EU? This is what the other person has. I don't know about it. With 11 platforms need to pay a tax to upload copyrighted material, and 13 forced platforms to have an upload filter. It basically ignores fair use. That's a problem, dude. That's a real problem. I haven't discussed this because I haven't heard about it. This is the first time hearing about it. So this is for all of the EU. So basically, you can't be an independent content creator and use any third-party content. That's fucked up. That's like attack of the corporations right there. That's what that is. We're gonna crack down on all independent content creators. Yeah, that's not good. I haven't read anything about that, so I'd have to read more about it. But that does sound terrible. I'm sure it'll cross my radar at some point if it's as bad as you're describing here. Why is it that establishment Democrats can bash the NRA for corruption, but don't do the same with other corporate industries? Love the show. Keep doing what you're doing. I have an answer for that. The answer is because corporate Democrats don't take any money from the NRA. So they bash it for corruption, but you're right. They won't bash Wall Street. They won't bash the military-industrial complex. People point this out all the time. They say, hold on, you're going after the NRA because they sell weapons. And so you say you're against that. But at the same time, these same corporate Democrats support the military-industrial complex and the so-called defense contractors who are selling weapons to all these dictatorships overseas. None of them say, oh my God, fucking Raytheon and Boeing. And none of them treat those corporations like they treat the NRA. The only reason they say it for the NRA is because they don't take any donations from the NRA. But they do take donations from the military-industrial complex. So there's just a massive amount of hypocrisy there. And actually, Hillary Clinton's the worst on this front because she, I think correctly, is very hard on the NRA, but she's the worst when it comes to selling weapons abroad. So you're right. That's giant hypocrisy, and I despise it. Greetings from Spain. Recently, our government canceled an arms deal with Saudi Arabia. And just last week said that the deals go on, saying that what happens outside of our borders is not their responsibility, and they call themselves anti-war. Shame. So you're saying that they canceled an arms deal with Saudi Arabia, and then they just brought the arms deal back? Is that what you're saying? Because that wouldn't surprise me. I know Canada, weren't they flirting with canceling it, but then they didn't, I think. Trudeau. And the U.S. doesn't even flirt with canceling it because we just pretend like they're, for Enlightenment values, and they're a good regime in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, the West needs to stop selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. That's a no-brainer. And Jill Stein was 100% right about this. She said, hey, we need a moratorium on selling weapons to human rights violators. So that would stop us from selling to Israel. That would stop us from selling to Saudi Arabia. That would stop us from selling to the 73% of the world's dictatorships that we sell to. And that's the right answer. I mean, you want to cut down on war by like 50%? Just do that. But she got laughed out of the room as being pie in the sky. And meanwhile, that's a perfectly rational and straightforward idea that would address these concerns. Where do you think Kratom stands in terms of legality at this point? In the states it already is legal in. It has helped me tremendously. Yeah, Jake, I love Kratom too. I really do. I love Kratom. I think it's great. Basically a therapeutic plant. It de-stresses me for sure. And I think it stands now where it stood before. And that means that it's in this legal middle ground where it's a monitored substance by the FDA, but it's still technically legal. But if they want, they could just seize shipments that come into the country, and they don't have to give any explanation whatsoever. So it's in this legal middle ground, which is better than being banned, which it looked like that was the direction it was heading towards. Now the FDA is going after e-cigarettes also. So it's weird. It's almost like every time something pops up that's overwhelmingly a good thing, that's when the government cracks down. But when something's a bad thing, that's when the government pushes it more, like, a lot of pharmaceutical drugs, for example. But yeah, Kratom, there's an outcry every time they really try to crack down on it a lot. And I hope that continues because Kratom has helped a lot of people with a lot of issues, whether it's some people PTSD, some people depression, some people addiction to pain pills. So there's a lot of upside. And some people like me just, use it recreationally. Would you begin paying attention to the private space industry if I told you the first company to set up shop on the moon or start mining asteroids will economically own the world? I guess I would, but I don't know if I buy that. So yeah, I'm skeptical of that claim. I'll just say that. The first company to set up shop on the moon or start mining asteroids will economically own the world. Yeah, I just don't know if that's true. And I don't know if all of us are going to be around for when that kind of stuff really happens. I feel like there's a lot of overpromising with that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. I think it's possible. All that stuff is possible. But I just don't. I feel like that's further off than people are willing to admit. In the same way that I feel like really extending the human lifespan, I think that's further off than people like to admit. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure at some point that'll interest me if there's really dire consequences involved with it. Hey, Kyle, interested in your thoughts regarding progressives who push the white privilege and new wave feminism messaging. Do you think that kind of messaging is a roadblock? It depends. It depends. So I'm a critic of identity politics, and some people get mad at me for being a critic of identity politics, and some people really support me for being a critic of identity politics. But my position has never been that there is zero credibility to any of the claims of those people. My claim has been that, as a general rule, when you see identity politics being pushed by Democrats, top Democrats, they're doing it as a cop-out and a dodge and a stand-in for actually supporting the proper left-wing policies. So instead of supporting Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and ending the wars and legalizing marijuana and a new deal and all that stuff, what you'll find is a lot of corporate Democrats now, what they'll do is they'll put front and center, hey, listen, I'm for black people, I'm for trans people, I'm for gay people, I'm for women. We have, Nancy Pelosi said this, we have a record number of them in the caucus, Democratic caucus now, and we need more. And what she's doing when she says that is she's going, No. Don't get it twisted. I'm the furthest left, which is why I'm talking about all these minorities that are in our coalition, and I want even more minorities in our coalition. So what you're trying to do is say, I'm more progressive than my critics who are actually on my left. Because, see, I'm for all these people. Oh, and you're not? You're not for more people of color? You're not for more women? You're not for this? And the response has always been from the left, listen, what comes first is policy. I'm happy if we get all different identities and whatnot, and ethnicities and backgrounds and religions in the caucus. But what comes first is policy. Policy. So it's a dodge of the establishment. It's the last-ditch effort of the establishment to try to convince you that they're more progressive than now. So now to the aspects that are legitimate, I think it's a legitimate point when people say, hey, the drug war is disproportionately used to crack down on minority communities, and therefore, it's fair to say it is a racist drug war because it disproportionately cracks down on minority communities. So that's a fair claim. You can make that claim. But again, messaging-wise, I don't agree with them because what's the solution to that? The solution to that is end the drug war. Legalize marijuana. So even for all the legitimate problems that involve identity, the solutions are almost always universal solutions. So my thing is, why would you focus on the identity aspect of it when you could harp away on the solutions, and the solutions don't alienate anybody? The solutions make it so that everybody's going to support you, or the majority are going to support you if you talk about legalizing marijuana. If a Democrat gives a stump speech and they keep talking about how the drug war is racist, drug war is racist, drug war is racist, that's not going to appeal as much as if a Democrat's up there going, I'm going to legalize, tax, and regulate marijuana, and I'm going to empty the prisons of all nonviolent drug offenders, and I'm going to, decriminalize all drugs. Talk about that, and that will fix the identity problem. But that's not to say that there's no credibility to certain claims from people who tend to push identity politics. So I've had always a middle ground opinion on that. But yes, there are some people who can get really cringy and over the top with the white privilege and the new wave feminism and the identity politics to the point where you're just not making any sense, and you're alienating more people than you're bringing into the movement, and you care more about virtue signaling than you do about actually getting the proper policies implemented. I hope that answer made sense. It was a long answer. Hey, Kyle, how do you think Trump will be remembered in popular culture in 30 years? Will the GOP reference him as they do St. Reagan? 40 blew up debt and deficit, but Republicans don't give a shit. Yeah, it's for Republicans, it's not about the actual evidence. It's about what they feel, which is ironic because that's what they accuse the left of doing. They say, oh, the left is all about feelings and not facts. It's like what Ben Shapiro says all the time, facts don't care about your feelings. But you really see a strong strain of that on the right, where it's not about the reality. They say they care about deficits. Reagan blew up the deficit, but it doesn't matter. We love Reagan anyway, because it's not about that. It's about how does he make them feel. So I think that among the base, they're always going to love Trump. And if something even happens where, let's say, he gets impeached or whatever, they'll defend him even more when that happens. Because they'll think, oh my God, it's the witch hunt come to real life. It's the deep state conspiracy coming to life. So I think that among the base, they're always going to love him. But on the left, they're going to despise him. Among moderates, they're going to despise him. Among establishment Republican figures, they're going to despise him. It's just really his base, his 25% base, that's never going to leave him under any circumstance. That's what I think. That's my takeaway from the situation. Greetings from Spain. I think I got them all. Holla for $1. I think I got them all. I'll hang around and see if there's a few more that trickle in. If not, then I guess we'll wrap it up. How long have we been streaming for? Somebody help a brother out here. I have no idea how long we've been streaming for. I'm going to guess maybe an hour and a half. I'd say an hour and a half. Does that sound right? 1 hour. Somebody says 1 hour. I don't think it's intentionally. Some of the super chats paid with another currency under 10 seem to get ignored. I saw the same trend last time. To my question, have you watched Potholer 54 Climate Change series on YouTube? Yes, I have. Potholer was actually one of the first YouTubers I ever watched when I was way younger. And He's good. I like the thing. I like his video on conservative solutions for climate change, because what he does there is he blows up this myth that, oh, you have to be on the left to think climate change is real and to care about climate change. What he does is he points out that that's a US phenomenon specifically, where the far right in America just acts like climate change isn't real. He says no. He says he believes in a free market, but he also believes in protecting the environment, and he believes in the reality of climate change, and he has free market solutions for climate change. So I really like that video, because even though I might not align with him politically in that sense, it shows that he's a serious person who's willing to address problems. So everybody check that out. Potholer 54's conservative solutions to climate change, because that was awesome. And he's just good. He's a good YouTuber. I really like it. And he also called out Steven Crowder one time and just ripped him limb from limb and exposed him for the fucking fraud and charlatan he is. And you could tell that Potholer 54 he's not even trying to like hurt Steven Crowder. He's just saying, hey, here's where you're fucking wrong. And it happens to be on virtually everything when it comes to climate change. I haven't been able to find a website I trust to buy Kratom from. Can you tell us where you have gone to buy Kratom that also provided good service? Also, I wore out my Secular Talk shirt. New drive coming soon. At some point, we'll do a new drive. I don't know exactly when. But yeah, where do I buy Kratom from? I think it's... haven't bought it in a while, but I think it's buykratom.us. Yeah, buykratom.us. And very good product and very professional, and they're just solid. There's very good company. Do you think all drugs will be legal here eventually? If so, which ones do you think are going to next in the list after weed? That's a good question. I'd say psychedelics after weed, because they seem to have the second most momentum in popular culture, where people say, oh, I did this hallucinogenic experience, psychedelic experience, and I got better. I was addicted to something else, and then this snapped my addiction to something else. Do I think all drugs will be legal here? I don't know if all of them will, but I feel like at some point, at the very least, drugs will all be decriminalized. Which is a little different than legalized, but it's still a giant step in the right direction. So I think a bunch will be legal, but not all of them. But I think at some point, all of them will be decriminalized. What is your opinion on Larry Sharpe for governor? Worse or better than Cuomo? I don't know anything about Larry Sharpe. I know nothing about him. So unfortunately, I can't comment on that. Somebody just gave $5. Thank you. The rich will leave the country for tax havens when you raise their taxes is an argument I've often heard from the right, apparently originating from Ayn Rand. What do you think about that argument? That's just not true. The evidence shows that that's not the case. And furthermore, you crack down on the tax havens. Like, this is like, people make it seem like, oh, there's going to be this response, as if you can't respond to the response. You know what I mean? So like, oh my God, they'll put all their money in tax havens when you raise their taxes. Okay, so then crack down on the tax havens first, and then you raise their taxes. And listen, where there's a demand, the business people will go. You understand that? Where there's a demand, the business people will go. So if there's a demand and they could sell a lot of product in a certain area, but they also happen to have to pay a reasonable amount of taxes in that area, they're not going to abandon a market because they have to pay a certain amount of taxes. So first and foremost, you crack down on the tax havens. And listen, see, this is why I even said this in regards to outsourcing. And this is something that, unfortunately, corporate Democrats would never agree to. But what you have to do is you have to incentivize them to bring the jobs back, where they'll actually save more money and make more money if they bring jobs back to the U.S., as opposed to if they have fucking, Cambodian slaves who are children making their shit. Because they bring their goods back in the country and it was lower costs, and then they sell them and they make more profit. But if you, put tariffs on them when they bring back in their products and make it so that it's even more expensive for them to re-import the stuff that they made in Cambodia, then they'll be incentivized to hire Americans. So you have to address all of that. You can't just leave, wherever there's a loophole, guys, it was on purpose. You understand that? Wherever there was a loophole left for business people, it was on purpose. So all you have to do is have a government that's not in bed with business, and then they will find ways to get rid of all of those loopholes, and then we'll have a more reasonable system. You mentioned Twitch in your number 83 talk with Corin. You should expand to that platform as well. You'll inform the younger generation as well as get more views. The gamer group is often liberal. Yeah, I think I mentioned this before, but I think David Pakman or somebody once reached out to me about that, and I didn't fully understand exactly what I know Twitch, there's a lot of gamers on Twitch, but I don't know if there's people who are just non-gamers on Twitch, and I don't know how well a non-gamer would do on Twitch, So there's still questions to be answered, but yeah, I mean, if YouTube gets bad enough, then sure, I'd be open to maybe going to Twitch or something. Maybe I said one time I saw my cousin watching some gamer on Twitch, and I thought it was pretty cool. I might check it out just to see if I find stuff I want to watch on there. Because if I get more familiar with the platform that way through personal experience, then maybe I'll feel like I want to really expand to that platform. But as of right now, I just have a cursory understanding of it. So I don't know if I'd want to make that move. And I told you that they wanted to expand their platform, but I don't know exactly what the deal setup would be and why they'd want me there, how they'd get me there. So there's a lot of questions to be answered, but I'll look more into Twitch because it is something that does interest me. Big fan, Kyle. What do you think about Jimmy Dore's video discussing Andrew Gillum and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez playing ball with Cuomo and Booker? I honestly don't trust Gillum at all anymore after what you guys have said. Well, listen, I never really trusted Gillum. I just pointed out the fact that he was the best available option in the race. But that doesn't mean I trust him. That doesn't mean I trust him. Because he supported Hillary over Bernie in the primary, which tells me he's a careerist. Because he thought there's no way that Hillary's going to lose, because that's what all the conventional wisdom was. So he wasn't going to blow his future career by supporting Bernie. So he supported Hillary. But Bernie is a nice enough guy and an open-hearted enough guy to say, hey, if I could convince Gillum to be in favor of my policy proposals, then I will actively campaign for Gillum while Hillary's doing nothing. So that's what happened. Gillum became more of a Bernie-type character when he realized, oh, this is where the momentum in the party is, and I'll get Bernie's support if I do it. So I never really trusted Gillum, and when you see him in a video with Cory Booker, your fears are basically come true. Like, okay, he may be better than a standard corporate Democrat, but he's still got a streak of corporatism in him and careerism in him. So he's better than the other available options. That's the reality, but that doesn't mean he's good, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't take your guard down. Now, as far as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez goes, yeah, if I was advising her, I would have said, don't endorse Cuomo. What are you doing? If you're going to fucking endorse him, at the very least, extract stuff from him. You got to remember, we have the people power on our side because we are for the popular policies. You don't need him. He needs you. He needs to genuflect at your altar. You don't need to genuflect at his altar. And if he doesn't genuflect at your altar, you know what you say? I'm not saying anything. I'm staying out of the race. You just won't get my endorsement. But instead, to say, oh, I'm going to support him without getting any extractions from him and promises of progressive policy, what you're doing is you're saying, blue no matter who, which is not correct. That's a terrible idea because then they're going to keep getting away with what they want to get away with, which is being rank corporatist neoliberals. So I don't agree with her on that strategy. But having said that, do I agree with people who go too far and say, oh my God, this means that she's a sellout? No, she's not a sellout. Are you kidding me? She's right on all the issues. And I think that's what's most important. And I don't agree with people who say, oh, this means the takeover of the Democratic Party isn't even worth it. Because we have 26 Justice Democrats who have advanced, which is a win rate of about 30%. You have Our Revolution and PCCC, who have a 50% win rate and a 67% win rate, respectively. So the idea that the takeover of the Democratic Party from the left is not working is just not true. We've made gigantic gains. And to poo-poo that is wrong because it's just factually inaccurate. So you can't expect a full takeover when we haven't even had a general election yet since the 2016 election. We've had a handful of special elections and we've had primaries. We did well in the primaries. So to poo-poo it is a bad idea. But I disagree with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I would have told her you need to get extractions from Andrew Cuomo before you say anything like that. Do you think the Republican response to allow Ford to testify on Monday is a political calculation in that if she does and Kavanaugh doesn't get confirmed, it will energize the Republican base? Do you think the Republican response to allow Ford to testify on Monday is a political calculation, and that if she does and Kavanaugh doesn't get confirmed? No, I don't think they're thinking that deep into it. And also, I'm scared that this is going to be like the Clarence Thomas situation, where Clarence Thomas was accused of sexual harassment and then he got approved anyway. Kavanaugh is basically accused of rape or attempted rape, and he might get confirmed anyway. But there might be just enough political pressure to make it so that he doesn't get confirmed, but we'll see. Either way, he's going to be replaced by somebody who's just as bad as him, but whoever's just as bad as him perhaps won't also be an alleged rapist, which matters, I think. Did you watch Tulsi Gabbard on Joe Rogan and Jimmy Dore? Do you think she'll run for president in 2020? Big fan. I don't think she'll run for president in 2020. I think she might have future aspirations to run for president beyond 2020. I did see Tulsi on Joe Rogan, and I will say I am severely butthurt. I texted both Jimmy Dore and Joe Rogan, and I said, I am so butthurt that Tulsi Gabbard only shouted out Jimmy Dore. I'm happy that she shouted out Jimmy Dore. Don't get me wrong. I got nothing but love for Jimmy. But I'm also butthurt that she didn't reference me, especially because when I was on Joe Rogan's podcast, one of the politicians I brought up when he said, who's a good politician nowadays, was Tulsi Gabbard. So I shouted her out, and then she gets on there and she's like, oh, there's all these alternative media outlets that are, doing the job that the media is supposed to be doing now. And Joe goes, who are you talking about? And she goes, Jimmy Dore. And I'm sitting there like, and then... And she's like, no, and then. And then, no, and then. So I was butthurt. I was like, this is bullshit. I shouted you out. You're not going to shout me out. You know what? Fine, whatever. I'll be butthurt in the corner by myself. I made Jimmy and Joe laugh, though, when I told them I was butthurt. I was like, this is bullshit. I feel like you don't cover non-Dem progressives enough, such as Kenneth Miha or Canova. Also, I'd love to see you debate Dore on third parties versus, we've already discussed that, versus takeover of Dems, because I feel Jimmy makes points you haven't addressed before. What points are those? Because him and I have had these conversations before. And you're not even characterizing my position correctly, because you're saying I support a takeover of the Dems. That's not it. I support a takeover of the Dems plus any way a left-winger gets elected. So I feel like my position is iron fucking clad, because I'm saying let's go all of the above. And anybody who says let's not go all of the above, by definition, has a weaker strategy, because you're not doing all of the potential strategies. So you're not characterizing my position accurately, number one. And number two, him and I have already spoken about that. And I don't think he even disagrees with me. He might think he disagrees with me more than he does, but he doesn't really disagree with me, unless his position is don't even bother to try to take over the Democratic Party, in which case I definitely disagree with him, because you need to do that along with get progressives elected any and all ways possible. So, and I have no idea what point you're talking about that you say he made that I haven't addressed, because I'm pretty sure I've addressed every single potential angle of that debate and that discussion. And remember, at a certain point, the rubber meets the road. So it's one thing to talk about all this stuff. It's another thing to actually get W's and get it done. And there's one point I've heard people make where they say, oh, how many wins have there been? Well, first of all, 26, which is pretty significant. That's pretty significant that you have 26 progressives who are now advancing, who are Justice Democrats, not to mention the R-Revolution, not to mention the PCCC candidates. But people go, oh, there's only one corporate Democrat you effectively knocked off thus far, and that's Joe Crowley. How many third-party candidates have been elected so far? Exactly. So, and again, that's not me shitting on third-party movement. That's not me shitting on independent. That's not me shitting on Green Party people. I'll support any of them if they're for the right policies. But let's not act like that's not harder, because it is harder. We've had this conversation before. You don't even have ballot access. You have to get ballot access to get the third-party people in. And by the way, if you were going to go third-party and try to go that way, you should at the very least go green above all else, because green already has ballot access in at least 48 of the states. A new third party has no ballot access anywhere. If you think it's rigged against Democrats taking over the Democratic Party, I got news for you. It's even more rigged against third parties. And the funny thing is, most people who support the third party direction admit that in conversation, because they know it's true. Everybody knows that it's rigged against third parties. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. So if we're admitting it's rigged against third parties and we're admitting it's harder to win the third party route, well, then it's a weird thing to say, let's only go in that direction. At the very least, you should say, let's try both strategies and all strategies of taking over the Democratic Party, winning as independents, winning as Green Party people, and winning as prospective new parties that, are yet to be created or have just been created or are on the verge of being created, like the People's Party or whatever. Point is, guys, I don't think this is a fake debate. Do you support left-wingers or not? You do. I do. End of conversation. Support them wherever they are. Period. That's it. There is no and then. That's it. If they're an independent progressive, I support them. Green Party progressive, I support them. Democratic progressive, I support them. That's it. To get focused on the labels and focused on the party affiliation is a non-debate. So that's the reality of the situation. I've watched you for the past few years and you're my main source of news. What share of the tax burden do you feel should be shouldered by the wealthy? In California, 50% of state taxes are paid by the top 1.5%. Agree? I don't know if those numbers are accurate. However, if they are accurate, you're missing a giant piece of the picture, which is how much of the income does that percentage make? Because whatever percentage they're paying of the taxes, even if it's a high percentage, I guarantee you the percentage of the income they make is way more than that. So that's I've seen this so many times on Fox News and other right-wing outlets, and it's so immensely misleading because they say, the 1% already pays X amount of percentage of the taxes, and it's so much. Oh, you want them to pay more? But they also happen to make almost all of the fucking money. I mean, one family, the Waltons, 6 people, they have more wealth than the bottom 45% of Americans. And we're going to be concerned about their fucking tax rate? Jeff Bezos has over $100 billion. And we're going to cry as if he's some sort of victim of a mean tax system? It makes no sense at all. And it leaves out half the picture, which totally disproves the point. So in my opinion, what should the tax rates be? Well, first and foremost, there should be more brackets. So right now, I don't know, what are there, 5 different brackets or so? And they top out at 39%, a 39% marginal tax rate. And by the way, for the sake of this conversation, people need to know the difference between a marginal rate and a regular rate. So a marginal tax rate means over a certain amount of money, you're taxed at a certain percentage. So in other words, if your tax rate over $1 million is, let's say, 60%, that doesn't mean that 60% of all of your money is taken. That means 60% of the income that you make that's over $1 million is taxed at 60%. And again, this is one of those things. The right exploits the fact that most people don't know how marginal rates work because they try to make you think like, oh my God, these left-wingers are so fucking irresponsible. They want to take like they said this about Bernie. He wants a 70% or 90% tax rate. Number one, that's not true. Number two, when anybody talks about a 70 or 90% tax rate, they're talking about a marginal rate. So if somebody makes $1 million, you don't tax all of that at 70% or 90%. Everything above that $1 million number, you tax at 70% or 90%. So your first million is taxed at a much lower rate. So do you understand that these things are so much more nuanced than people give them credit for? And the right fudges the statistics and tries to skew the picture to make it seem like the rich are victims when they most certainly aren't. Working people are victims in this system. So me personally, I would add more brackets. I would close all the loopholes for tax dodging, Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and all that. So you raise like $100 billion a year extra revenue just from doing that alone. I think we should have brackets, including a bracket for above $1 million, a bracket for above $5 million a year, a bracket for above $10 million a year, a bracket for above $100 million a year. And yeah, I'm totally open to the idea of once you get to like $1 billion and above, I'm open to the conversation of taxing that shit like 90% above $1 billion. Because there's an argument to be had that anybody who actually has $1 billion, that wealth in and of itself is such a threat to a democratic system, to a system of government. There is such a thing as somebody having so much wealth that it threatens the way a system can function successfully. where if somebody has that much money, they're almost guaranteed to buy the system and then rig the system further in their favor because they have so much clout just by virtue of the fact that they have all that money that you could just buy public officials all over the place. So the exact tax rates I want, I don't know because I haven't thought about it deeply enough to give you specific numbers. But I'm certainly open to the idea of over $1 billion taxing maybe 90% or something like that. I'm certainly open to the idea of going back to what it was in the golden age of economic expansion in the U.S. We had a 73% tax rate at one point. But where would I do the 73% tax rate? I don't know, over $5 million or $10 million or something like that. So you can still be rich. You just can't be obnoxiously rich to the extent that it would collapse the fucking system that we live in. So I'm in favor of redistribution of wealth. I'm in favor of Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and paid vacation time and all that stuff. And I'm in favor of limiting the amount. Once you hit a certain point of wealth, above that line, there should be a very hefty tax rate to make sure that you're not so wealthy to the point that it undermines the functioning of a democratic system. So I know that's not a totally direct answer, but I don't have a really direct thoughts on this. I don't have the exact rates I would give you, but I just know I would add many more brackets. And also, let me be clear, I would actually cut taxes for the overwhelming majority of Americans, for working people. So if you're in I've warmed up to the idea of a universal basic income. I like the idea of actually eliminating many of the social programs we have now and just replacing it with a lump sum universal basic income so people can kind of spend it as they want and have that cushion as actual cash and not having to go to 4 or 5 different government programs and do all this goofy paperwork and all that shit. So I would cut taxes for most Americans, but raise it on the rich, and I'd add many more brackets and have higher top marginal rates. Sorry, that was a long answer. How about a flat 35% import tariff across the board but for countries or corporations that have environmental, labor, safety regulations that match or exceed ours get exempt? I'd have to think more about it, but I think just at face value, you're on the right track. Like that's a good idea, but I'd have to think more about it, what the exact rate should be, if we should maybe not do such a flat idea, but you have to change it more on a case-by-case basis. I'd have to think more about it, but I like where you're going with that. Many jokes have been made about the whole gay frogs thing, but can we talk about the serious issue of environmental factors affecting sexuality? Like there was a real study on sperm counts going down. Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't think guys like Alex fucking Jones know what he's talking about when he tries to pin that on something specifically. If sperm rates are going down, and maybe they are, I don't know what caused that. You don't know what caused that. I'm pretty sure that there's no studies that pinpoint exactly what the fuck they think caused that. I mean, I'm open to the idea of, like, for example, in Europe, I think they banned aspartame, which is an artificial sweetener because it's bad for you. And in the US, it's legal. Okay, am I in favor of like banning aspartame and chemicals that are harmful? Absolutely. But I just think that there's a lot of people talking a lot of shit about stuff they know nothing about. And one of the examples is what you're talking about, like gay frogs and sperm counts going down. If that's true, which I don't know if it's true, what are the causes? Do we even know? Because I would doubt it. I would doubt that we would know exactly what's causing that. Kyle D. Kulinski, keep doing actual journalism. You are one of the few sources that I can trust. Kyle, TJ, and Edward Snowden are the 3 calamities. I like how me and TJ Kirk are in the same comment as Edward Snowden. That dude is, me and TJ are just bloviators. Edward Snowden is an American hero who really risked his life in order to tell the truth and whistleblow and get the word out there about how our government's spying on all of us without a warrant. So Snowden is a hero. Me and TJ are just bloviators. And I'm pretty sure he would acknowledge exactly what I'm saying as well. Like, I'm pretty sure he'd agree with that comment that I'm making. You'd be a perfect candidate for either Westchester's U.S. district or New York governor. As much as I like Nixon, she started her campaign too late and didn't get traction. You'd learn from that and maybe win. Yes, I would 100% win. I'm not just saying that. I would 100%. I don't care what office I'd run for. I'd win. I'd win. But I'm not going to do it. Because I like what I do now. And it's a totally different ball game. And here's the thing. I'm much better at strategy. Like, I could win because I'm very good at strategy. And I'm very good at telling the truth. And I'm populist. And that sells. So I think I would win. But I'm not so sure I'd even be the best at governing. because to be good at governing, you have to be incredibly organized, and you have to be a little more wonky than I am. Like, I'm relatively wonky, but in order to really be good at governing, you have to really know how to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. And I'm not so sure I'd be great at that. I would be great at campaigning, and I would definitely win, but I'm not so sure I'd be great at governing, because that's a lot harder than doing what I do. I come out here and I talk about strategy to get elected, and I talk about what the right policies are. But think about how much work actually goes into crafting like a Medicare for all system. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into that. A lot of work that goes into that. And it's not as easy as like what I do, where I come out here and I say, we should all be for Medicare for all. Yeah, that's easy. We should all be for Medicare for all. But what are the exact details of that plan? And I'm not the guy to really craft all the specific details. So I do think I'd win, and I don't even think it would be close. I think even if I ran for president, I would win. But I don't think I'd be the best at governing. And it's not for me. It's not for me. But here's what's for damn sure. If these candidates would fucking listen to me, if these Democratic candidates would listen to me, they would win. I'm not just saying that. If there's anything I know, it's marketing, it's arguing, it's how to get your name out there, how to be more likable than the other person, how to convince people. That's what I could do. So if these people would listen to me, these Democratic candidates, they would win for sure. What are your thoughts on the land expropriation situation in South Africa? I heard there was a bill to seize white-owned farmland without compensation. I don't know if you stated that correctly, that there's a bill to seize white... Okay, it might be a bill, but I don't think it's law. I don't know enough about the situation in South Africa. I know that Joe Rogan was tweeting about it, and then he got a lot of shit for tweeting about it, and people were calling him a white nationalist. I know for sure Joe Rogan is not a white nationalist. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know. I really don't know anything about that situation. I don't know anything about that situation. I know nothing about South Africa. I know nothing about the farm situation in South Africa. I do know that apparently those farms, people got those farms in the apartheid system. So like they stole that land in the first place. And then now I think the way the law works now is when a white farmer passes away, that's when the government seizes the land, if you will. So it's like you can keep your farm until you die of natural causes, obviously, like later on in your life. And then we seize that. And then I don't know exactly who it goes to or how it goes to that person. But I don't know enough to comment on that situation. And I know it's a very toxic issue because, again, Joe Rogan was being accused of being like a white nationalist because he said that there's a lot of deaths of white farmers there. I think the counter argument people were making to him was it's not just white farmers. It's farmers, period. It's just farmers. So it's not white farmers. It's also black farmers. It's just people killing farmers. And why are they doing that? I have no idea because I don't know anything about the situation. So honestly, I probably shouldn't even be commenting on it as far as I have so far. But I can't shut the fuck up because I'm an idiot. I mean no mischaracterization, man. I just have a character limit. I wasn't accusing you of that. I'm just saying... Oh, actually, I did accuse you of that. I would just like to see you and Dor have a discussion because I can't say what you're missing in limited typing space. Meant no offense. Sorry I yelled at you. I've said this to Jimmy. I've said, listen, I don't think we disagree. I think this is a non-debate. That's what I've said to Jimmy. This isn't a debate. Because ultimately, when you ask Jimmy point blank period, do you support left-wingers winning anywhere? What does he say? Yes. When you ask me, do you support left-wingers winning anywhere? What do I say? Yes. So that's it. Debate over in my mind. Debate over. From there, everything after that is just noise. It's all just noise. He might lean more in the direction of, I prefer third-party candidates winning. Okay, fine. That's your opinion. That's your opinion. I have no problem with that. You can have that position. No problem whatsoever. But if he supports left-wingers winning everywhere, then we agree. There would only be a disagreement if he believes that there shouldn't even be an attempted takeover of the Democratic Party, and the Justice Democrats who have won, and the Our Revolution candidates who have won, and the PCCC candidates who have won, and the left-wingers who have won from within the party, that's a waste of time and that's stupid. If he believes that, then he's wrong. But I don't think he believes that. So I don't think there's really a disagreement. With all the censorship going on, do you fear secular talk could be on the hit list? If you were taken down, what would you do? You know, I probably should have some contingency plans. I do fear that. Because a lot of censorship is against the left and it just doesn't get as much press. I mean, look what happened to Abby Martin. So I do fear that. What would I do in response? I don't know. Maybe go to Twitch. Maybe build out a personal website and do it there. We'd find a way. We'd find a way, because as long as I have you guys and as long as we have Patreon, patreon.com/secular talk, then we'll find a way. We'll find a platform. We'll find a way. And I would get the word out through Twitter, you know? And then if by some weird scenario, like they did on Alex Jones, which I don't think they'd go that far against me because I'm not accusing Sandy Hook people of being crisis actors. But if they somehow took down my Twitter and my YouTube, you'd see me on Jimmy Dore show the next day. You'd see me on TJ Kirk's YouTube channel. You'd see me on the Young Turks. You'd see me on Joe Rogan. And I would tell you guys where to find me. But as of right now, I don't have contingency plans, although I should have contingency plans, whether it's Vimeo or whether it's Twitch or whether it's whatever the fucking cryptocurrency version of YouTube is, what BitChute, I guess, if that's what I really don't know what it is. I'll find a way. We'll find a way. It's just a matter of when that happens, what would we do? But I don't have those hardcore plans set right now. But I should, because better to be safe than sorry. I'll say that. I'm studying public policy and want to run for office, even though I'm populist left and want to push the right policies. Is it wrong to get an internship with an establishment Democrat to get into politics? My advice to you would be this. Do an internship with somebody who passes one thing in your litmus test. So if it's an establishment Democrat, but the establishment Democrat is open to Medicare for all, or the establishment Democrat is for a $15 minimum wage, or the establishment Democrat is for free college, make sure the establishment Democrat is not as bad as Joe Manchin. That's my point. As long as the establishment Democrat is not as bad as Joe Manchin, and as long as they meet like one of your priorities, then no, I wouldn't begrudge you interning in that direction. But if just don't intern for somebody who you think is, you could be ambivalent or indifferent to the candidate, that's fine. But if you actively hate the candidate or disagree with the candidate, then I wouldn't do it. So if it's like a Joe Manchin or Hillary Clinton, then I'd say no. But if it's somebody who's at least right on some of the issues, then go for it. Go for it. Hey, Kyle, I find myself on the fence regarding immigration. Ending ICE seems to be the new thing, but at what point should an illegal immigrant be left alone? Assuming we know they're illegal after a year, a few months. I think it all depends on action. So I've said this before on my show, and I don't think this makes me right wing or moderate. Maybe it makes me moderate on this issue, but if you're an undocumented immigrant and you're a criminal, I'm totally fine with deporting you. Like the idea that we should end all deportations, I just simply don't agree with. The idea that we should have totally open borders, I just don't agree with that, because I support welfare statism. And in order to have a welfare state, you need to have borders, because you can't have no borders and then, basically saying to anybody, hey, if you just get here, you're going to get a generous welfare state. Because then it's just, you're incentivizing the wrong things and you're incentivizing chaos effectively. So I'm in favor of having some border protection. I'm in favor of deporting people who were violent criminals and undocumented immigrants. But outside of that, if somebody's been here for even 6 months and they're working and they're productive, yeah, I'd give them a path to citizenship. Now, don't get me wrong. Once we establish border protection, what that means is you have a process set up when you establish that border protection. And yeah, a lot of people are going to cross the border and then they're going to be sent right back because they're not, for example, trying to get away from a horrific situation where, there's gang violence or there's drug war or there's whatever. So if you're coming here and you're looking for asylum, you should get that asylum, because we could handle that. We could handle people who are looking for asylum, and it's also just the proper thing to do from a moral perspective. And usually those people who are looking for asylum, it's not like they're coming here to gangbang. They're coming here to get away from the gangbanging. So for people like that, we should have a system set up to deal with asylum. We should have a system set up to give a path to citizenship for people who are undocumented immigrants, but who have been following the law and doing the right thing. The only people I'm really okay with deporting are people who are criminals and undocumented immigrants, and people who just crossed the border, but they're not looking for asylum. And again, you have to have a system set up where you prove whether or not they're here for asylum or not. So I think that that's the moderate position. And actually, to be fair to the Democrats on this issue, I think that that's pretty much where they fall. Like I think the Democratic Party position on immigration is actually pretty reasonable, where it's not this caricature. The right wing likes to make a caricature of the left wing, the Democratic position on immigration, where they say, "Oh, they're all for open borders and they love MS-13," and that's just so stupid and not true. And they want to end all deportations. Not really. It's not like you see Democrats calling for the abolition of Customs and Border Protection. They call for the abolition of ICE. And the reason they call for the abolition of ICE is because it was created in 2003, and there's accusations of them doing slavery, like literally forced labor, and it was proven in court, by the way. And it's overkill. You don't need that. You don't need that government agency when we have Customs and Border Protection, and they also have more human rights abuse concerns with ICE than you do with Customs and Border Protection. So they call for the abolishing ICE because of what they're doing, like with the family separations and things of that nature. So the abolition of ICE is something I agree with. I don't agree with the abolition of Customs and Border Protection, but nobody's really calling for the abolition of Customs and Border Protection. And I kind of agree with the standard Democratic position on immigration, which is, yes, we'll make a deal with you where we do border protection. Fine with having border protection. Fine with deporting undocumented immigrants who are criminals. But I'm going to have a path to citizenship for people who are here and they're working. And remember, guys, the real issue when it comes to immigration, and this is the concern on the right, is, oh my God, cheap labor comes in here, okay, and they undercut American workers. So you'll have corporations hire cheap labor who are undocumented immigrants where they could pay them less than minimum wage, for example, and they get Americans to lose jobs as a result of that. But they're wrong about who to crack down on. You don't crack down on the undocumented immigrant. What you do is you crack down on the corporation. That's what you do. You crack down on the corporation. You crack down on the business owner for hiring those people in the first place. But honestly, the real answer is what? Take those undocumented immigrants who are here and they're working, and instead of having them undercut American workers, if you have a path to citizenship and you make them citizens, they can't undercut you anymore because they would have to be paid the same wage that you would be paid. So that's the other part of this that's not acknowledged by the right, is that if you just make these undocumented immigrants who are not criminals citizens, you have a path to citizenship, they can't undercut your wages anymore now, can you? The reason why they can undercut your wages is because they're fucking being paid off the books and they're being paid less than minimum wage. So the solution to the thing that the right-wingers fear is actually the Democratic plan. But again, they don't acknowledge this. It's like the same thing as abortion. On the issue of abortion, they don't understand that when you have Planned Parenthood and you have birth control and you have education, sex education, what happens? Abortion rates plummet. So the solution to the right-wing concerns is the left-wing policy. Same thing with immigration. The solution to the right-wing concerns is the left-wing policy. So I hope that answers your question. I just kind of laid out my position on the border in general. What about having a higher minimum income for taxes? In other words, having to start paying taxes at $20,000 a year instead of around $10,000 a year. So yeah, I agree with that. Like I said, I like the idea of cutting taxes for the working class. And I've never met a working class tax cut I didn't like. So on this issue, if Republicans are honest in that they support tax cuts for the working class, then I'd work together with them. But honestly, the thing is, most of the time, that's not the case. They talk about, oh, we're going to cut taxes for regular Americans, but then they cut taxes for the rich, and they don't do it for regular Americans. So that's what happens most of the time with the Republicans. So they're just using it as a framing issue and a marketing issue. For me, I actually believe in it substantively to cut taxes for working people. So I actually think, again, that that's the more progressive position, is to cut taxes for the working class, raise it for the rich, but also just don't cut the social program. So that's my take on that. But I like your idea. It's a good idea. 3 things. 1, are you single? 2, will you be voting for Cuomo or his Green Party challenger? 3, you've skipped past a bunch of questions during this segment. Well, to the 3rd thing, I'm literally just going through everything that pops up in front of me on the super chat thing. I'm clicking through each one and answering each one. I haven't skipped a single one. I've seen others that have popped up and then probably gone away before I had time to get to it, but none of that is on purpose. And this has happened every time I did one of these things. People were like, oh my God, you missed my question. You did this, you did that. I'm trying to answer all of them, and everyone that pops up in front of me, I'm answering, but sometimes they go away because I don't have time to get to them because I'm still yammering away on some other question. So skipping a bunch of questions, that wasn't on purpose. I'm sorry if I missed your question. I apologize. Are you single? No, but I don't talk about that out of respect for my significant other. Will you be voting for Cuomo or his Green Party challenger? I don't know anything about his Green Party challenger yet, but me personally, what am I going to do? I'll learn about his Green Party challenger, and I will probably vote for the Green Party challenger. But even if I don't vote for the Green Party challenger, I'm not going to be voting for Cuomo unless he makes crystal clear that he's going to do certain things that are on my litmus test. Listen, I'm not that hard of a guy to please, man. Like, I have this litmus test, and you have to come out in favor of the policies I want, and then I'll support you. It's not that hard, you know? And the question for Cuomo is, do you believe him? Do you believe him? And I don't know if I believe him. So Cuomo, to his credit, is actually for a $15 minimum wage. Okay, good. He's for paid vacation time. Okay, good. And how do I know this? He signed a bill in New York to give those things. Good. Support it. Good for you, Andrew Cuomo. I'll give you credit on that. But Medicare for all, he's not totally solid on. He's hinted he might be in favor of it. I need a hardcore commitment on that. Free college, he's in favor of, but his bill was so-so. Wasn't the greatest bill. But okay, I'll still give him credit for that. But he would need to come out in favor of Medicare for all in order for me to, a hardcore support of Medicare for all in order for me to vote for him. That's what I'll say. And he hasn't done that yet. He's just hinted at it. I need more than just a hint. Yeah. So I don't know. I'll likely not vote for him, and I might vote for the Green Party challenger, but I don't know anything about him yet. Should Dems attack Republicans for being for open borders for corporations and the rich? Ooh, I like that framing. That's good. I like that. That's really, really, really good. Shout out to S. Rob for that. I never thought of it like that before, but that's true. They want open borders for corporations and the rich. Yeah. Except Trump. He doesn't want that, but the way he's doing his tariffs is actually terrible because he's sparking a trade war and he's going to fuck shit up more. But I like that framing. You want open borders for corporations and the rich. So in other words, you want an outsource fest, and we oppose that. I like that framing, Rob. Good job. As a former right-winger, thanks, man. You helped me flip 180 and became woke. I used to like Shapiro until he said he supports Bolton to be Secretary of State. Also, I'll buy you a beer if I see you here in LA. Hey, thanks. I really appreciate you saying that. And I will be in LA for Politicon, so come through to Politicon and, we'll have a conversation. But I'm happy that that's what flipped you, because it's like you realized, oh, Ben Shapiro is a helpless hawk and he's for unnecessary wars, and you went, that's stupid. Now I don't support you. So credit to you for being open-minded enough to flip when you saw, hey, this guy's not with me on this issue. Because, yeah, supporting Bolton that's it. Strike one, you're out. There's nothing more after that. That's crazy. He's a war criminal. Been a while since you and Sargon have done a stream together. Always fun, enlightening, and I feel both of you have a lot to unpack. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Sorry. Why don't we have a progressive tax system when it comes to corporate taxes? That's another great point. We should. I would chain the capital gains rate to the income tax rate, because if you chain the capital gains rate to the income tax rate, then if somebody makes $1 million in investments like Mitt Romney regularly does, instead of paying 15% or 20%, they'll be paying fucking 39%, 40%, which is what it should be, because you just sat on your ass all day and made money. If anything, the capital gains rate should be higher than the income tax rate, because for the income tax, you have to work to get your money. For capital gains, you just sit on your ass and your money makes money. So it's the the tax that's on your investments. So if anything, you change the income tax or even make it higher. And I like your idea. Take the corporate tax rate and have a progressive tax system with it, as opposed to nominally it was 35%, and I think they recently cut it to 25 or 21% or something like that. But you're right. I would definitely do that same thing. Have a progressive tax system, chain it to the income tax at the very least. I like the way you guys are thinking. You've had a bunch of really good policy ideas. Thoughts on recent TYT layoffs alongside the membership drive? Are they in financial trouble? I don't know. I have no idea if they're in financial trouble. My thoughts on the layoffs are I feel bad for the people who got laid off on a personal level. I'm sure they're really good people, and it sucks to get laid off from any job. And there are some people who they laid off who I wouldn't necessarily have laid off, but I hate to also be a dick at the same time here. I'm happy that they're now going in a slightly different direction as a company, because their bread and butter was never those entertainment shows, whether it's What the Flick or whether it's TYT University or Think Tank or whatever the fuck it's called, or whether it's Pop Trigger. Those shows never did good numbers in the first place. TYT Sports, all that, like they never took off. They never had good numbers. And honestly, when it came down to it, it really was from a business perspective, it was a waste of resources. And if you decided, hey, we're going to be the left-wing central thing, then fucking be left-wing central, be the home of progressives. And to be overextended in sports and entertainment and all that, and they weren't even doing well, those shows, you had to move away from that at a certain point, and they just happen to do it now. But yeah, some of the people I wouldn't have fired, though. I would expand the investigative journalism unit. Ken Klippenstein is a fantastic investigative reporter, and he's doing great work. I would hire a few more solid investigative reporters if I were them. So I actually have mixed feelings on the layoffs overall. In terms of, are they in financial trouble? I don't know. I mean, I would honestly tend to doubt it, because they have so many members that they should be all right. So, and by the way, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but when I go to LA and I go to Politicon, I will also be on TYT when I'm out there, and I will also be on Joe Rogan's podcast again when I'm out there. So busy schedule when I'm out in LA. Do you think that independent media is the inevitable future of news? And if so, would you be going after YouTube pundits more often? I mean, at this point, I pretty much go after whoever crosses my radar and makes a point that I want to respond to. So I have no qualms about, going after people wherever they may be. If I think they have enough influence and I think that I want to respond to it and like correct the record, I'll go after them no matter where they are. But independent media, yes, it is the future of news, but also I think we should maintain our outsider status at the same time, because it's the fact that I'm an outsider that I think makes me more appealing and gives me more credibility, because you guys know I'm a regular dude telling you exactly as I see it. The second that I lose that regular dude touch, and the second it looks like I'm more of an insider, that's when it's the end of secular talk, because then it's not staying true to the original mission. And that's what matters. What matters is you got to stay true to the original mission. You got to stay true to yourself. You have to tell the truth. You have to let everybody know exactly what your thoughts are and where you lie. And you can't ever make calculating insider decisions. And when you look at who's on like corporate media, you get the sense that they're nothing but fake. Whether it's people like Michael Avenatti or fucking Scaramucci and people like that, like they're fucking bullshitters, and that's how they got to the position they're in, and they're clout chasers, and they're pieces of shit. So if I ever turn out like one of those people, tell me immediately, and then I will have to shut down secular talk, because I will have lost my outsider status and I'll be an insider prick. I am an education major from Kentucky. I want to teach and coach for a few years, then run for political office. Is that a good strategy? I'm involved with the teacher union. I love your show, Kyle. Yeah, it's a great strategy. Because then when you run for office, you get to say, I was a teacher and a coach, and now I'm running for political office, and I was involved with a union. And then you know what that means? You're a regular fucking person. And people are going to go, oh, James was a regular person. I'm going to vote for James. So I love that. I love that. You're doing all those things are good. Teaching is good. Coaching is good. Being involved in a union is good. I love all that. So I would certainly support your candidacy. Have you seen Blair White's video where she talks about how almost all the popular right-wing YouTubers, commentators admit behind the scenes that they don't believe what they preach and just tell their base what they want to hear? Yes, I actually have seen that. I have seen that. And number one, I'm not surprised that that's what it's like on the right. But number two, I'm actually happy that Blair admitted that, because it's almost like she's at the beginning of some kind of weird deconversion where she's like, what was I doing? What was I doing? Because her role is, and I don't know if she's totally aware of this or not, but if she isn't, I'll let her know. Blair, your role was, I'm the trans person who's supposed to shit on other trans people. That's your role. That's the role that they wanted you to play. It's no different, honestly, than what they do with Herman Cain on Fox News, where they throw him out there and they go, okay, your job is to be the black person that hates other black people. So that was your role. Now, I don't want to, I'm not trying to delegitimize her opinions. Like, maybe she actually does believe a lot of the very conservative stuff that she said over the years. But it almost strikes me like she had an aha moment and a spark in her head where she's like, oh, this is all fake. And I'm not surprised that it's like that on the right. I can tell you one thing for sure. It ain't like that on the left. You talk to Jimmy Dore, he believes every goddamn word he's saying. You know, you talk to David Pakman, you talk to Cenk Uygur, they believe everything they're saying. Everything they're saying. And listen, sometimes we may even disagree with them. Fine. You guys might disagree with me. Fine. But here's what's for damn sure. If Blair had that experience on the left, being a commentator on the left, she would know very quickly, oh, so they mean it, they believe it, and they're real. Whereas on the right, by the way, who's the one that she's really referring to? I wouldn't be surprised if it was Milo. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Rubin. I'll just say that. It's probably one of those two who she's saying, yeah, they were like, maybe Crowder, although I tend to think maybe Crowder believes it a little more than the others, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Crowder doesn't believe it either, but certainly Milo and Rubin, I get the sense of like, you just have an angle here. You just have an angle, son. This isn't like, oh, let me tell you what I really think. It's like, oh, I found my niche. I found my angle. And it's smarmy and it's gross. And everybody should recognize that it's as fake as it is. Will you smoke weed on Joe Rogan's podcast and actually inhale, unlike Elon? In all seriousness, keep up the great work. Need more voices like yours. Thank you. No, I'm not going to do it this time. Maybe I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to talk to Rogan when I'm there, and I'm going to propose a deal with him, which is whatever the next time is I go out there to LA, I will smoke weed on his podcast, and he has to come with me and we can record it to put it on our YouTube channels. But I'm going to take him to the golf driving range and he's going to hit some golf shots, and I'm going to try to get him interested in golf. If he comes with me to hit some golf shots at the golf range, then yes, I will smoke weed on his podcast the next time, not this time. But I'm going to propose that deal to him, and I'll do it on air next time I'm on Rogan's podcast. Any plans to put your show on iTunes? Video eats up a lot of battery on the phone. They used to put it up there. Somebody used to take it and put it up there from Blog Talk Radio. I guess they stopped doing it, but no, I have no personal plans to do that. Do you know any progressive candidates for North Carolina for midterms? No, I do not. Contrary to popular opinion, I actually don't like just kind of inherently know these things. I have to read about each and every one of these candidates. So sometimes I'm behind on the things I perhaps should know. Would love your take on Like Home by Eminem and Alicia Keys, Trump diss song. The only thing I heard from Eminem on Trump was the thing he did at the BET Awards. And I mean, it was okay, but it was not the best. But like I said, Eminem's Kill Shot was great, and his new songs Fall and Lucky You, I think, are both very good. And I was just talking how when I started the podcast about how the MGK one is stuck in my head. Even though Eminem won that exchange, MGK's song is catchy as fuck. Non-US user Twitter policies for threats of violence, etc. Course are not great everywhere, and it's easy to incite mob violence. Example, India. Yeah, I mean, if we do what I want to do, which is regulate Twitter like a public utility, I'm pretty sure that we only have jurisdiction within the US. So we cannot, by definition, we cannot legally, have the same rules in place for overseas. So to your point, would I have some board or group of people who are there to handle doxing and direct threats of violence in other countries and in the US, honestly? Yes, I would. But you have to be very clear that it's only for direct threats of violence, and it's only for doxing, and it's only for the clearest cases of you're not allowed to do that. So yes, I'm not like a fucking anarchist on these issues where it's like no rules at all. But it's just, you have to lean heavily on the side of free speech and be as reasonable as possible. And especially for outside the US, yes, you have to deal with clear cases of direct threats of violence and doxing and things of that nature. you can have a system set up to deal with that and deal with it quickly. I agree with that. Will you be covering China's cultural genocide against Muslims? I think I've spoken about that before. You're talking about the Uyghurs, right? I think you're talking about the Uyghurs. Yeah, that's a serious issue, and it's been an issue for a very long time. And it's only becoming big in the news now because Republicans in the U.S. are trying to push that out there because they want to crack down on China and do more tariffs against China as Trump is doing, and they're trying to go after them economically. So in order to go after them economically, you need a pretense for that. And what they're using is, oh my God, look at their treatment of their Muslim minority population. Now, do the Republicans really give a shit about the Muslim minority population? Please, son, not even close. They're using it so that they can then crack down on them economically. But having said that, that is a real issue. That is a real issue that what the Uyghurs are going through. And in the same way, perhaps it's even worse what's happening with the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar. So it's not good. It's not good. And I don't know how to address it and fix it. Okay, you guys can stop sending in your super chats now. Thank you for all the super chats. I really appreciate it. I'll answer the remaining few that are here, but definitely stop sending them in now because I have to pee again and I have to eat. So we'll call it a day after these last few here. Oh, I answered the Blair White one. I answered the North Carolina one. How would you counter the libertarian argument that taxation is theft? It's easy. You say the words social contract. So it's not theft when there's a social contract. So that means they are taking a certain percentage of your income and then you get things in return for that. So it's not like they take it and that's it. They're gonzo. No, they take it and then here's a road, here's a bridge, there are the cops, there's the fire department, there's Medicaid, there's Medicare, there's the fucking military. So it is by definition not theft because you're getting things back in return. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't examples where they take your money and they don't give you anything for it or they give it to the wrong things. But that's why you have to get involved in politics. That's why you have to prod your government to do the right things with the money. So the answer to that is actually very simple. And it kind of annoys me that libertarians still make that argument as if they have a good point when it's actually a really bad point. The answer is taxation is not theft. It's part of what's called the social contract. So their whole argument rests on denying the fact that a social contract is a thing that exists. So it's a really bad argument. It kind of reminds me when Dinesh D'Souza is like, oh yeah, the Democrats founded the KKK, so the Democrats today are racist. Well, you're ignoring the fact that a political realignment is a thing that exists and it happened. So it's just a really bad argument. All right, guys, reminder, stop sending in the super chats. I'm going to answer the remaining ones, and then I got to get out of here because I got to pee and I got to eat. If $15 minimum wage passes, don't you think it will be harder for small business owners trying to start up? No, I don't. So there have been a number of studies, and in fact, Jimmy Dore just recently covered one the other day, that show that when you raise the minimum wage, it actually doesn't increase unemployment. That's another libertarian argument. They go, hey, it's just common sense. It's just logic. Look. When you make the small business owners pay more, then they're going to hire fewer people by definition, right? That's not actually how it turns out. Because if you raise the minimum wage and you do it in a reasonable way, and usually what happens is they phase in the raise over time. So let's say your minimum wage now in your state is $10 an hour. Over time, they might raise it to $15. So do $1 next year, $2 the next year, so on and so forth. So you get to $5. What ends up happening is it works just fine, and you actually don't increase the unemployment rate. If anything, in some cases, you had more employment. So it just doesn't work out like that. And I just missed a bunch, guys. I'm sorry, but there were like 3 or 4 that were up there that I was just about to get to, but they just went away. All I see is the taxation is theft one, which I answered, and all I see is the North Carolina for midterms. They just went away. Fuck. I'm really sorry about that. Okay, so I am donezo. I'm outskis. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much for the super chats. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening to the show. I really appreciate that too. Holy shit. Not only is my eye pink, but I see my white hair is coming in now. I got to dye that son of a bitch right there. And what else did I want to say? Oh yeah, just one more time. Coming to Politicon. Come to Politicon. Do it now, bitch. Tickets down below skis. Check it out. me versus Aunt Coulter. Then I'll also be on some panels and doing panel discussions with a bunch of people. I think David Pakman, Sam Cedar, Anna Kasparian, other people who are political people. Who knows what the fuck is going to go on? Maybe I'll do that when I'm on the panel and people look at me like I'm crazy. They'll be like, why is he fucking flailing his arms around? Anyway, love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day. I'm out. Peace.